Midday in the Queen City, business is booming. We're talking about the look of Cincinnati today, housing, offices, and more. Let's do lunch. Cincinnati is a city that means business. Fortune 500 company HQs, renowned institutions like Children's Hospital and the Cincinnati Zoo, and letters that everyone here knows: TQL, GE, CVG, UC, and X. It's also a city that's large enough for new ideas to take root and grow. You know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody, and you're in business. I'm Jack Crumley, and this is The Working Lunch. Hello, welcome to The Working Lunch. I'm Jack Crumley. This is our hour-long business show here on The Crown, where we give you headlines about what companies throughout the city and region are doing. We bring you interviews with local leaders and business owners, and also we try to squeeze in a bite to eat, maybe something to drink before you go back to face the afternoon. Glad to have you here on this Monday. Let's check the weekend box office numbers to start out. Some interesting reporting by Deadline says that both the heat wave that's going on in Europe right now, it's coming here, and the continued excitement of fans watching the World Cup had an effect on movie ticket purchases this past weekend. Studios have been telling foreign movie theaters to play up air conditioning as a selling point, and authorities at the same time in parts of Western Europe are telling people to simply stay indoors. All that being said, when it comes to box office figures, critical reviews have been mediocre at best for Supergirl's debut weekend. This is the second film in Warner Brothers' James Gunn DCU franchise. It made $30 million overseas, and that paired with an anemic $38 million domestic. This is the follow-up to Superman, trying to keep that franchise going. Not great box office numbers just yet. I've seen a number of online movie people lamenting the idea that Supergirl is just okay after a number of political culture warriors have been heaping criticism for their own reasons. I got to be honest with you, it's weird that that kind of thing is something that you have to consider when you're making a superhero movie. You can see the numbers there. Toy Story 5 added to its big opening by pulling in another $70+ million. That's a $300 million total domestically in just 10 days. And then there is the little movie that could, the movie that's been making money news for just about every single one of its now 7 weeks in theaters so far. You're seeing it there at the bottom. That is Obsession, coming in at number 3, drawing another $9.5 million. Again, just an incredible theatrical run on a less than $1 million production budget. Coming up this weekend, we will see what effect this week's new Minions movie release has on the dollar amount that Disney's trying to get from Toy Story 5 in theaters now. We are kicking off Cincinnati business headlines with a government update that could have really big implications for the way business is done in northern Kentucky. The city of Covington is transitioning to a mayor-council form of government next year. This is going to do away with Covington having a city manager like it's had for nearly 100 years, and will now let the mayor of Covington have direct control. It's something that voters signed off on back in 2024. Voters this coming November will elect 6 new at-large council members to serve part-time. Covington Mayor Ron Washington says he hopes that City Manager Sharmili Reddy will stay on as city administrator. You remember that we had her on the show 2 weeks ago, talking about a number of different developments all going on in northern Kentucky's largest city right now. You've got the combo NKU and UK Law School Medical Center building near the convention center. Also, the city acquiring land for a new farmers market, and the ongoing redevelopment of the former IRS site to really be its own new neighborhood in Covington. Lots happening in that city, and starting next year, that will have the mayor directly at the top. Money for arts and culture in northern Kentucky. Both ArtsWave and the Meet NKY Visitors Bureau teaming up to award $60 grand in northern Kentucky creative placemaking grants to 9 different projects. That is Sparks in the Park right there. These are for free community events that are going on now through spring of next year. They include a live music series called The Rail Sessions. That's at the Ludlow Railfan Tower for tourists and train enthusiasts alike. Also, the South Bank Shakespeare summer season is getting money for some different venues and pop-up performances. And there's also the Urban Appalachian Community Coalition. They're getting money for a social arts program for young adults focused on Appalachian history and culture. A traffic note: if you are trying to get into downtown Cincinnati, more work on the Brent Spence Corridor project means more traffic restrictions going on downtown. The eastbound US 50 ramp to get onto 2nd Street now closed. You're going to have to take Freeman Avenue to get into downtown instead. So if you're on the west side, maybe trying to get to a Reds game or anything downtown, you'll have to take that detour. And then starting tonight, the southbound 75 exit ramp to 2nd Street is also going to close. Finally, in your headlines for today, we don't normally get into individual real estate listings on this show, but you got to see this. The Business Courier with pictures of this more than $5 million home that is up for sale on the Kentucky side of the river. That's on Bella Vista Drive near Covington and Park Hills. It is the most expensive single-family home currently on the market locally. Gorgeous river views of downtown Cincinnati, tall ceilings, floor-to-ceiling windows, a heated pool with a swim-up bar, a rooftop terrace. This is a single-family home. 5,600 square feet, 4 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, and a half bath. That Courier reporting also says that the home will be the site of a fundraiser for the Northern Kentucky Children's Advocacy Center. That is in part to raise money and also put the home's availability on the radar of people in this area who can afford to spend $5 million on a house. That is a good segue for us into today's Big Bite. I wanted to give you an updated snapshot of the housing market in Cincinnati. $5 million homes in Northern Kentucky notwithstanding. Check out this report from just a couple of weeks ago.
So when people ask you, is now a good time to buy a home in Greater Cincinnati, what do you say to them?
So the answer is yes, if you are the right buyer, if the scenario fits you, right?
Yeah.
So according to the Realtor Alliance of Greater Cincinnati, inventory is up roughly 30%. So is it still pressure? Is there still speed? Yes, but if the situation presents itself to you and you're financially ready, then yes, it's a time to buy, because you've heard me say it before, real estate is one of those things that you wish you would have bought 5 years ago, no matter what the condition is. So if the situation presents itself and it lines up to your current lifestyle, then yes, it is a perfect time.
That is Daniel Shepard on Fox 19 earlier this month. We know that the Cincinnati area has had reports for a while now of scarcity when it comes to housing inventory. That is still the case, but more recent reporting has that figure stabilizing. Take a look at some stats from the Cincinnati Realtors Alliance. You can see there the median price, the number of units sold, and total volume sold for the month of May locally is all rising. Active inventory right now is up nearly 19% from where we were in May of last year. New listings are up now versus last year as well. Redfin.com says that the Cincinnati housing market is in a balanced but loosening phase, and housing prices locally are still coming in significantly lower than the national average. We talk about it a lot on this show. That is one of the biggest things that makes the Midwest attractive, a lower cost of living. Those stats are backed up by an interesting tool that I found on Realtor.com. Take a look at this. It's a market clock to sort of indicate cycles for the housing market. 3 o'clock there is the indication for the Cincinnati area. That's a pretty balanced market that is leaning toward a little bit being more favorable for buyers. You can see at the top, that's when things are strongly a seller's market. Down at the bottom, 6 o'clock is when things are a buyer's market, and then you have times in between. According to Realtor.com, we are in the balanced market right now and edging toward it being a buyer's market. Now, when it comes to rent, that's still pretty high, averaging over $1,400 a month. So many renters in a position to own a home instead are making that transition if they're able. The rental market nationwide actually saw prices drop 1% in the month of May, but Cincinnati saw the biggest jump among major U.S. metro areas when it comes to renting, up 7.4%. Experts attribute Cincinnati's surge to limited multifamily construction that has kept supply tight despite a national apartment building boom. Remember, the city of Cincinnati has that new website for apartment listings. That's a way you can compare rents in various neighborhoods all in one place, and you can know that those listings are legitimate. They're backed up by the city itself. One other useful stat when it comes to houses for sale in various neighborhoods on Realtor.com is a breakdown of neighborhood prices. Realtor.com with a list of pricing for different parts of town, and just like how price tags at the grocery store show you how much something costs per ounce, you can see there what's being charged per square foot. Listings for Westwood, West Price Hill, Over the Rhine. You can see where Oakley is coming in on listings per square foot. Over the Rhine also at over $300 per square foot. You can sort of see the way that all shakes out. I think that's a useful tool. Also note that there's a category for median rental prices in a given neighborhood as well. One other thing to consider when it comes to Cincinnati housing, regardless of what you're paying per square foot, is interest rates. That's something that the president talked about recently as Congress passed a bill that was massively supported by both parties, which is obviously a rarity these days, and it puts limits on private equity owning homes. That's something we have seen really affecting supply in recent years. Don't have a signature on that bill just yet. That's related to some political posturing over a bill that would put new restrictions on voting. But in the same breath, we did just get a new Bank of America survey this morning that I was going over. This is a snapshot of the housing market as from the perspective of Bank of America. It says more than 6 in 10 respondents to that survey say that home affordability is still the biggest barrier that they face in the housing market this year. That is up from 46% who said the same thing last year. 71% of respondents said they expect prices and interest rates to fall. They are waiting until then to buy a home. One other bit on that Bank of America survey that I got here this morning, the lock-in effect that's kept homeowners in place in recent years, according to Bank of America. They say that appears to be easing. 52%, just over half of current homeowners who were in the survey, said they did expect to buy another home. About 22% of them expecting to do that this year. That is up from the number of folks who did that last year. That is a snapshot just on some current things that Bank of America found. Do have one other bit on that from Redfin, where the cost of a starter home has gone up. Redfin says that in separate research, back in 2012, the typical median sale price for what Redfin defined as a starter home was $95,000. This is a nationwide survey. That price rose to $165,000 and change in 2019 and hit $250,000 by the year 2024. That is a tremendous jump in the cost of what is considered to be a starter home. All these factors set the stage for Cincinnati's housing environment, along with one other thing, and this is an important one: emotion. People just looking at homes can easily fall in love with a house. Folks who are tired of a basement that routinely floods or neighbors that they just don't get along with can be easily motivated to sell as well. One other thing, getting back to that $5 million home that we had listed in Northern Kentucky, Tasha Klaber of Sibsey Klein spoke with the Business Courier about the luxury housing market, a slightly specialized subset in there, saying that buyers have become more selective, but things are still strong for exceptional properties that are both priced appropriately and marketed effectively. That's a nice feature, being able to market things. That's why they're doing that charity fundraiser right there. In Northern Kentucky, she said that inventory at the luxury level remains limited, especially for newer custom-built homes. That's your Big Bite on this Monday. We are going to keep things in the housing category. My guests coming up after the break. We've got more for you when it comes to that. New homes, new apartments, new offices, and even new monuments aren't built until they're designed first. Dan Yakavone is the principal and director of Cincinnati operations for MA Design. Sari Lehtinen is a senior designer. We've got an exclusive look at the way buildings are built in Cincinnati coming up after the break. Take a look at some stocks of interest. You're watching The Working Lunch on The Crown. Stick around.
This city has always had something to prove. While the rest of the country talked about us, we built our own voice. Blue collar, underdogs, built differently, overlooked, talked about like we were supposed to stay quiet. But that was never who we were, because this city doesn't wait for permission. And neither do we. And now, for the first time, Cincinnati has a network built in its image, because the biggest stories in this city deserve more than highlights. This isn't cable television. This isn't national media. This is ours. This is the Crown.
The Crown has you covered. Start your day with the first word. Cincinnati's only morning sports show. Power through midday with the working lunch. Cincinnati business talk that keeps you in the know. Nat tries that for lifestyle around the city, and the Rebound Rundown covers every corner of the college basketball scene in the tri-state and beyond. This is The Crown. Built for Cincinnati. First word for your morning sports. The working lunch for business that hits home. Nat tries that for lifestyle around the city, and Rebound Rundown for college hoops. This city deserves its crown. Watch, listen, subscribe.
My name is Jack Crumley. I've been covering news in Cincinnati on the radio for the last 20 years. I grew up in Northeast Ohio, but Cincinnati has always felt like home since day one. I've seen so many things accomplished here, and now, with the working lunch, I get to write, read, and talk about them every day. Hard-working people with a drive and a dream. Innovative ideas that help shape this city. Cincinnati is a great city, and I'm excited to tell you about it every day.
My name is James Rapine, and I host First Word every weekday morning, 7 to 11, right here on The Crown. Prior to joining the Crown Network, I covered the Bengals for Sports Illustrated for 6 seasons. I also am the founder of Cincinnati Bengals Talk on YouTube and wrote the book, Enter the Jungle, A History of the Cincinnati Bengals. Couldn't be more excited to join you every weekday morning for First Word right here on The Crown.
Welcome back to the Working Lunch. I'm Jack Crumley. Glad to have you with us on this Monday. We talk about buildings in this city a lot, whether there's new businesses moving into them, the housing segment that you just saw, and I'm pleased now to have on some representatives from one of the premier design companies in this city, MA Design. We've got Dan Yakavone, who is the director and principal of Cincinnati operations for MA Design, and Sari Leitinen, who is a senior designer with the firm. Thank you guys so much for coming on the show today. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
So, I'm so interested in the process when it comes to the way buildings are built. People always get to see the cranes and the heavy construction equipment and all the dirt that's being moved out of a site. But before that happens, we get a design phase where you guys figure out what the outside of a building looks like sometimes, certainly what the inside of it looks like. I think that you guys have an interesting job when it comes to sort of being at the intersection of science and art. Is that a fair way to shape it?
It is. I think it is. I mean, we definitely get involved like years before the cranes are on the site, and usually we have to keep it quiet that whole time frame of not really talking about it, keeping it confidential. But It is. It's that whole process that we go through before you actually see it hits the papers and before the cranes are on the site is truly it's a fun thing. That's why I keep being an architect. So.
Yeah, well, and you talk about the process too, and the time it takes. I would imagine you guys have to be incredibly patient, because just for the design process alone, whether you're building out the interior of a place, whether you're figuring out the way the building is going to be laid out, that could be months in and of itself, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the work's pretty involved, and I think it all starts when you first figure out what could be done with the site, and that's kind of the early part, the concept part, before you really even get into the weeds of the design. So there's a wait normally between the time that a project actually comes to us as a potential, and we start noodling with it and work it out with a client and whatever parties, and then after that, long time after, sometimes a couple of years later, we actually start getting into the real fine details, and that's a pretty lengthy and involved process as well.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking like maybe years from conceptual design to when something's actually up.
Yes.
Do you guys is it old hat for you guys, or is it still the kind of thing where it's exciting, the idea that you guys are making decisions that frame how the city looks? You're deciding what parts of town look like for maybe decades to come. Does that still give you a thrill?
It does. I mean, it definitely it's exciting. I think the big thing that we try to always do is try to fit in the neighborhood as much as we can, or the community or the area that we're in. And so, like, how do you put a building that is new but feels like it's been there for a while, or wants to make a statement and is really stands out but still fits in the neighborhood?
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting balance, right? And you have to also decide how extreme you want to be in a given thing, and then also go along with whatever developer what they're looking for in the given property. You guys, I think, have a lot of different boxes that you need to check. Is that a fair assessment?
It is, and it's like it still has to work financially for them. So, you know, they basically will design to a point, and we'll usually do concept level plans and figure out the capacity for the site. And then the client will take that back and they'll do the financial look at it. And, okay, here's how much it's going to cost me to build it. Here's how much I can get financing for. Here's what the rent can be. And they try to make that whole pro forma work and make sure that it works before they move forward with the project. So sometimes if the interest rates are high or something like that, it just doesn't work. And then as the interest rates start to come down, it helps the project be more successful.
That's so many outside factors that you have to balance, and certainly we know that interest rates and inflation haven't been really great. Have you guys been seeing that having an effect on new projects?
Yeah, I would say interest rates and the cost of construction as well has been a big factor lately. The cost of construction is not coming down; it's leveling out, and so it's kind of staying consistent. But more and more of our projects now, they stop at every phase. So we'll do a schematic design development, and construction document phase. And at every phase, we're stopping and they're repricing it to make sure that we're still in line with what the market is saying.
So that's constant checks. And each constant check could, in theory, sort of disable or restart a previous process.
Yes. Or like, I'll make us go back and redesign something so it's a little bit more effective and efficient. Whatever it might be, balconies or something on a multifamily project.
You know, speaking of multifamily projects, I wanted to sort of walk people through some of the process here. We've got some pictures that you gave us about the development that's going on in Bellevue. This is an $80 million project called Harbor Green in Bellevue. It's been in the works for a number of years. Nair Properties and Uptown are in the process of developing it. So I just kind of want to walk through the process here with you. This is a picture of the site. This is a part of your sort of design packet that you had for this. So is this where things start, by going out and just taking photos of a given plot of land?
Yeah, I'll let you talk about this.
Yeah, we walk the site. We kind of, more than just looking at it on the map and doing the research and figuring out, there's always like whatever local zoning and other codes might be in place, and just to understand where we're going and who our neighbors are. But it's always critical to walk the site. So that's from our site walk.
So that's how things start, with seeing the actual site, and then, you know, moving into just a general map of the area. There was another map you had that had topography on it, understanding all that, and just sort of taking it all in. I like the idea that part of the process in designing this is to show what sort of the sight lines are and what the good views are from that spot. You can see the site boundary right there. That's what we're talking about, and the idea that people are going to have a good view of Mount Adams and into the hill, and then it moves into the sort of the 3D design right here. Is that does everything stay digital now? I mean, because I've seen old architectural stuff where it's someone building little models.
Yeah.
Is that still a thing, or is it all just digital now?
It's most of it's digital. Sorry actually starts freehand sketches, things, and tries to figure out capacities, layouts, even unit mixes by that, and then we start to put that into the computer, and it's digital after that. We still do a lot of printing, 3D printing, so that we have models. So it's not necessarily the chipboard models and the basswood models that we used to build, but it's more of a 3D printed thing that the client can then actually see the mass of it and see how it fits in. So it's taking it to into the digital, but also bringing it back out at times to make it more tactile.
Well, and speaking of tactile, so the next part in the process then is photos, that's specific building materials that you're looking, because this all figures into the vibe of a given place, whether it's, aluminum siding or brick on the exterior, and then starting to design out the different elements of the building. You got the office tower further up, but this is also a multi-family place, roughly 200 apartments that I think you guys also have to deal with zoning on, right?
Right, yep.
And then that all leads to some final designs of what the interior of a given, say, 2-bedroom apartment is going to be, having it all built in. I don't know. Is this thrilling for you guys, or is this just like a normal? Well, this is a Tuesday, and we're building out a 2-bedroom apartment.
Oh, it's still thrilling. I mean, it's definitely still is. Sometimes it is a Tuesday, and we're building it out, but each project is different, and even though we've always tried to come up with standard unit plans, and it's hard because every client is different what they want, and then even the size of those units, and then the neighborhood that you're in dictates kind of how do you kind of arrange that. But Sari, she's really good at taking those unit plans and really kind of looking at it holistically, and how do you get as much natural light, views, kind of all those things as soon as you come in the door. So you always have this one turn to a window, so you position yourself back and you get the natural light flooding through the space. So you could try to squeeze the building and the square footage down as much as you can, but it doesn't feel like it is because it's very open
I would
apartment.
say I'm always really worried and concerned and focused on how it feels to live in these places when it's a multifamily. So it's at the same time you're looking at it, how do we fit into the community? How do we fit into the budget? How does the building look from the outside? But how does it feel to live in there? How does it feel to come home? But how does it feel to use all these spaces? And really trying to be mindful of the smallest things, how the doors swing and all that kind of stuff. So it really is. It's thrilling. I love it. I think it's always great, and I think I'm really focused on trying to make nice homes for people, basically.
Wait, well, you're thinking about the way something feels when somebody gets home at the end of a long day, and they get to sort of have that moment where they shut the door and toss the keys into the jar and then have a nice sigh because they just looked out the window at a really nice sunset, and that's all because of decisions that you guys made months, if not years before.
Yeah.
Sorry, how does the environmental certification, I know that you've got some LEED accreditation when it comes to your decisions and your thoughts on the way different environmental factors come into play. How big is that? Is that coming from the top down, from the developer, or are those ideas you guys are bringing to the table?
It's something that we think about all the time, and oftentimes the developer may have an idea that they want to have a certain kind of certification. Maybe it comes with some kind of funding or tax credit perks or something like that. So then we go about it that way. But there's always this kind of idea of the healthy building. How do we touch the earth as lightly as we possibly can, kind of thinking behind everything.
Is that something that you've always been interested in, or is that something that's...
Yes, from the very beginning, yeah.
Dan, you talked about working with the different developers, and how much of what you guys do is somebody's putting out a bid for somebody to do the design work, a given developer, and how much of it is just relationships? So much about business has to do with who you know and how well you know them.
Yeah, a lot of it is relationships. We started our office in Cincinnati based on relationships. So we had a project with a client down here, which is still one of our clients today, that was under construction. We had one under design. We had the next one kind of lined up. So it made sense to have some boots on the ground people here and open an office here. So our main office is in Columbus, but we opened this office down here. And since then, we kind of became a little bit more of that multifamily expert in the market. And we're growing that, but we'll also try to diversify ourselves as well. So we're not doing less multifamily, but we're doing more other things as well. So we're doing a lot of workplace and office, some community projects, some industrial projects, but trying to balance that work all over. So if something happens with the economy, because we are very tied to the economy and interest rates and all that, that if all of a sudden multifamily dips, that we have other things that'll keep us kind of moving forward. So,
well, and we were talking about in the Big Bite here earlier in the show about Cincinnati is seeing a bit of an increase when it comes to rent and renting, and the housing market itself is stabilizing. How close of an eye do you keep on that sort of thing, or is it just you got to wait and see what comes up?
We keep a pretty close eye on it. I would say, like in the past, it's always been the coast. So like the East Coast, West Coast are kind of affected quicker than we are. Cincinnati's a little bit behind, and it takes a little bit while to get to us, but it eventually comes to the Midwest, and we kind of feel those pressures. I'd say rent is raising everywhere, and I think to go back to the LEED thing and the sustainability thing, so to make the financial model work, sometimes there's a gap. And so trying to figure out how you close that gap, and sometimes it's a tax thing with LEED or sustainability or OAQDA, which is the state of Ohio, that helps close that gap. And so there might be those things that come up that help financially, but also help sustainability as well with projects.
Yeah, because in theory, if you're doing something that's maybe a little bit more environmentally conscious or sustainable, there's going to be more of an upfront cost, and then trying to figure out, and you sell that by saying, well, it's going to cost you less for your heating and your insulation and stuff like that.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yes.
That's interesting. How much new construction are you guys involved in versus how much are you reworking existing structures?
We're mostly doing new for multifamily. It's pretty much, I'd say 95% of it is new. We do some renovation, but usually it's a renovation with an addition is typically what we're seeing. And then we're doing a lot of office TI in existing shell office spaces, but putting new interiors into those. So for offices as they move into a new tenant moves into a building or something like that, we'll do that space as well. So it's still new space, but it's within an existing office building.
Yeah. Do you get blown away sometimes by when you see, like when you're designing something that already exists and you see some of the construction decisions that got made maybe decades before? You've probably seen some weird stuff over the years, right?
Yeah, I've seen, yes. And I would say that it's even more depressing when you see one of your buildings that you worked on is on the, it's going to get torn down or something like that. So you're like, you feel really old at that point. So.
That's interesting. Hey, we're going to take a break. We'll be back with more. Dan Yakavone and Sari Leitonen. MA Design is one of the premier design companies. They handle architecture, experiential design, and more all throughout the city. Folks who are deciding what this city looks like. We're going to take a break. We'll be back with more. You're watching The Working Lunch on The Crown.
What is The Crown? It's simple, really. Authentic Cincinnati entertainment. Not hot takes from a studio 3 states away. Not national noise pretending to know this city. Rather, bringing a voice to those who call the Queen City home. Where can I watch The Crown shows? Join us live from 7 to 11 a.m. for First Word and 12 to 1 for The Working Lunch on RESN. No live TV? No problem. Stream and interact with all of our content on major podcast, broadcast, and streaming platforms. The Crown is Cincinnati. Loud, passionate, competitive, proud. From early morning sports debates to the business leaders shaping the riverfront, to the fans, stories, moments, and culture that make this place move. Live shows, podcasts, documentaries, digital content built from Cincinnati, for Cincinnati. This is The Crown.
Hi, my name is Natalie Jones. Just your typical 40-year-old Cincinnati girl. Although, no, I'm not married or divorced. I don't have any kids, and I don't live in the neighborhood I grew up in, which is the West Side, by the way. But what I do have is a lot of freaking time, and I've been using it well. So come along with me on this grand adventure, because I've been trying all the new around town that you need to know about. This is Nat Tries That.
My name's Jacob Tissett, and I'm a co-host of First Word from 7 to 11 every morning right here on the Crown Network, where we will break down the biggest stories in Cincinnati sports. I'm a graduate of the University of Alabama, where I spent 4 seasons working for the football team as a student assistant, contributing to the 2020 National Championship and 3 SEC championships. I'm a Cincinnati native, a St. Xavier High School graduate, and will bring a local perspective and passion to covering the Bengals, Reds, and everything in between. I'm excited to have you join us on First Word.
Hey, I'm Marissa Contapelli, one of the co-hosts on First Word and a features producer here on The Crown, where I will be out and about in Cincinnati bringing you the stories that you need to hear in the Queen City. Now, I know I'm from Cleveland, but I love my Cincy sports. I've been in Cincinnati for almost a decade now, spending the last 8 seasons with the Bengals as a team reporter and senior producer. I am so excited to be a part of the team here at The Crown, and I can't wait to bring you the latest from around the city.
Welcome back to the Working Lunch. I'm Jack Crumley. I am joined by Dan Yakavone and Sari Lehtinen. They are both with MA Design, which is a architectural and design and experiential design firm here in Cincinnati. I believe $4 million in billing back in 2025, working on all kinds of different facilities here. Multifamily homes, office buildings being converted into different things. These guys are making decisions about what the city looks like going forward. I'm fascinated by the process of it. Dan, I want to start with you. Are you a local guy? I know you went to Ohio State.
Yeah, I was at Ohio State. I am a local. I grew up in the Loveland area. I always say that we were a bunch of kids out in the country at that point, and it was a small town, but it's grown a lot.
Loveland's gone through a couple of changes over the last few years.
But I lived in Columbus for a while, and then moved back to Cincinnati. Then actually took a job again in Columbus, but I drove up 71 every day for 8 years.
Oh, wait.
And then ended up back with MA for the last 11 years. So.
What got you into the whole design and architectural thing? Did you play with a lot of Legos as a kid?
Not so much Legos, but my parents would take us to like Homerama. We'd go to like open houses on the weekend, and I found myself like with graph paper drawing the floor plans of what we walked through. And so I was always kind of interested in it. My dad was an engineer, and so he kind of like, I don't want to say he pushed, but he encouraged me the engineering route. So I tried that for 2 years, did not necessarily like it, and transferred into architecture, changed my major, and I enjoyed it ever since then. So.
Now, Sari Lehtinen, you are a senior designer with MA Design. You have been in Cincinnati as long as I have. You came here from Finland 20 years ago.
Yeah, actually, I came to the States from Finland 30 years ago.
Okay.
And I'm born and raised in Finland. I went to school there. I graduated in architecture from the Helsinki University of Technology, that's now called Aalto University. And then I moved to the States in '93. I lived in Washington, D.C. and worked there for a year. And then I lived in Chicago for 10 years. I worked a lot on historic rehab and that sort of stuff over there, all kinds of miscellaneous things, single family also. And then 20 years ago, landed in Cincinnati. And that's when I really kind of started focusing on mixed use and multifamily.
What was it that interested you about Cincinnati? Did you have a choice in coming here, or was it just sort of the next place that had an opening?
Yeah, I'm married to a Hoosier, and so this is close to home for him. But also, Cincinnati is just a very charming city, and we loved loved the way it felt and looked, and just felt like home pretty much immediately. So it's been great.
Was part of that based on sort of seeing the existing architecture? Because I know, there's a number of movies that we'll shoot here. The variation in designs of various buildings, resemble 1970s Brooklyn. There's some movies that have tried to resemble West Coast architecture that has shown up in some more modern designs. There's a really wide variety of designs in this city, right?
Yeah, and there's a depth of history, which I really appreciate, and that shows up in the building stock as well. So I have a very thorough appreciation of older buildings.
What are some of the other projects that you guys have worked on that folks would either recognize the name of or, sort of know that they've seen as they go around town?
We worked on quite a few things. One that we just finished last year sometime was the monument in Montgomery. So, Sorry worked on that. She designed that. It's in the new roundabout at Cross County.
Which was a
Montgomery
huge
Road.
project for the longest time.
Yeah, right. And it was infill where they basically, that's where the highway used to be. And then when they made the roundabout, they raised everything up. So we worked on that project, and that just finished, I think actually around Christmas time, because they put Christmas lights on it. And that was a last minute change to it to kind of retrofit it so that they could add that to it.
How different is that designing? Designing a monument is supremely different than figuring out a multifamily 2-bedroom apartment or some sort of office building. I don't know, do you guys do a lot of monument work?
We don't do a lot, but I'll let Sari answer that one because that was mostly her job.
It's almost a sculpture project or like just general architecture as looking at the community and what they are about and what fits here and about scale and all that kind of stuff. So it really isn't that far. It's architecture, so in that sense it ties to everything. But it's mind-blowing because suddenly you don't need heating and cooling, and you don't need all this equipment. All you need is a little bit of power and you get it lit. So that was very interesting. It's been a lovely, rewarding process.
Do you have more artistic input when it comes to something like a monument versus designing an apartment building or an office space?
I think that would be pretty much true, yes.
How often do you have a situation where you've maybe designed something that is maybe a little more artistically inspired and maybe been a little bit more daring on, and then the folks come back to you and say, you know what, can we back this off a little bit? We're looking for things to chill out a little bit.
Yeah, it happens a lot, but I think a lot of the design is and I think design is really, it's a dialogue, or sometimes there's more than two parties that are talking. So it is very much a team sport, and it's not something that anyone does alone. So I feel like in even like the monument, where I had maybe a heavier hand than in a lot of things, the community has a lot of say. So it's always something where you listen to people and the parties that are the users or the people who are going to live with this project, and then you go from there. So I'm looking at it less as an ego trip and more like bringing thoughts together and giving them physical shape.
How much does the feedback that you get after the fact, maybe even this is a long time after something has been designed, something is built, do you get any feedback years later from people that are something that they really like or something that they didn't really like that you find surprising because maybe you put a lot of thought into it at the time?
Yeah, it's nice to hear people like and appreciate something. I've had some of that. I think less so negative has come forth. Yeah. I'm sure there is that. Right. But I think we hear the positive is easier to say. So
and I would say too, like I feel like there's, at first everybody is usually, not everybody, but some people are sometimes negative on it, or they don't want change.
And this town?
Yeah, I know. Right? Imagine that. And then as it gets built, we hear afterwards more positive things of like, this turned out better than we anticipated it would be. And the other thing too is, like Sari was mentioning a little bit earlier, is that we try to listen. So we do listen. We do a lot of visioning sessions with our clients on almost all of our projects to really figure out, because at the end we walk away and it's theirs and they got to run it and manage it. Right. And so it has to work for what they need. And so we take the time up front to really dig deep with them, listen, and try to figure out exactly what they're trying to get out of this project. So at the end, it really works well for them, ongoing for years. So.
How often is it a situation where you spend a lot of time designing something, maybe going back to the drawing board, not even metaphorically, literally, right. A number of times, maybe a year, maybe 2 years go by, and then at the end of the day, it just doesn't work out? And like all these things that you put a lot of thought and effort into, that just is never going to see the light of day.
It happens occasionally. I'd say like it's usually something doesn't happen, but the whole project might not move forward, but a piece of it usually does. And so like it might be a big master plan of a big concept that's, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars, but a pieces of it will start to move forward, but maybe not the whole thing. So we have a project right now that it's kind of been a start and stop a lot, and it's a big one downtown area, and we're just waiting for it to start back up again. So,
do you still see room for growth in Cincinnati in terms of a forecast and looking ahead? Things that can be developed, obviously you can always sort of rehab an existing building, but in terms of new construction, I mean, do things look rosy from your perspective? What's the outlook?
They are. There's still a big demand for multifamily housing. There's not enough. We haven't built enough compared to our kind of our sister cities that we have. So like if you look at like Columbus, Indianapolis, they've built a lot more than we have the last 5 years. So there's a lot of, I'll say business leaders locally that are very vocal about we need to really step up, and if we really want to be a city like Cincinnati, like a first-hand city, that we need to act like it and build more. And so there is a big demand still. That's why you're still seeing rents going up. And so we haven't overbuilt yet.
From your perspective, when it comes to building and new construction and enticing people to come to a given area, how do things like the streetcar play a role, if any, in designing whether a new business is going to set up or whether an apartment building is going to be brought in?
I mean, public transportation, we always look at that and to see kind of how do we access it and how do we position the buildings on it. The city, and I'll let you maybe talk about this, they just passed the, like last year, the transit corridor.
Yes, for the rapid bus.
Yeah. So
sure, the metro expansion.
Yeah, and so now they changed the zoning along those routes, and so there's actually no parking requirements along those routes. You still need to park the project to make it successful, but that's helped a little bit too. So there's a lot of corridors now that are these
connected communities.
Connected communities. There you go. Yeah. Yep. And so that has helped, and I think it's causing more development along those routes.
Okay, well, that's great because, I mean, people being able to move around, that's a huge part in what makes something attractive. And, you know, for the longest time, I think it's still the case. The things that separate good cities from great cities is some kind of public transportation.
Yeah.
Interesting. In terms of working with different governments, you guys are working with the city of Cincinnati, all sorts of other expansions. Certain ones are easier to deal with than others. Do you find having to sort of tailor your design work because you have an idea of what a given local leadership is going to be looking for?
I would say yes. It always has to do with what regulations are in place, what the political will is, what's driving. And I feel like often the developers in these multifamily projects especially are on the front line for that. So they are the ones who are figuring out where the conditions are ideal and who is wanting their types of projects.
Yeah, and I would say so there's a lot of like community councils and stuff like that we work with, that our developers will usually reach out to them first, kind of, and talk a little bit like broad scope of here's what we're thinking about doing, trying to get their buy-in, because it's really, if you can get their support, it's going to help drive the project forward. So like one that we're working on now, which we started design during COVID, 2020, is 3 Oaks, and so that's up in the Oakley area, and we got Oakley Community Council on board early, and that really helped us drive that project forward. And now it's under construction. It's right off 71. You can see it off the highway.
Well, and we're certainly seeing issues in, like, say, Hyde Park in terms of the local folks in charge not being thrilled with some of the previous designs. We've got that new version of Hyde Park Square being brought back to the table. You guys serve a lot of different masters. You guys are also in a creative sort of driver's seat. I think it's all really interesting. What other new projects? Can you tease out anything else new that we haven't heard about already?
I'm trying to think of new things.
I'm not trying to put you in a bad spot here. I know there's things that can be talked about and there's things that can't.
Yeah.
Well, of the older projects, 550 at Lytle Place.
550 at Lytle. I think we do have a picture of that. This is a gorgeous part of town. Right there. There's the museum is right near there. Certainly Lytle Park. That's been a really growing area. That's some gorgeous building work right there. And that's down to the brick and redesigning that whole thing. That's been a very nice spot for you guys.
Yeah, that's a rehab. That's an older apartment building from 1969, and we updated it a little bit. And it had been a while since it had been touched, and now it's a very kind of high-end place to live.
Yeah. Dan Yakavone and Sari Leitonen are with MA Design. They're one of the premier architectural and design firms here in the city. Designwithma.com. If you got something you're looking to have their eyes on and have their creative thought put into, check it out, designwithma.com. Thank you guys very much for coming on the show. We are going to take a break. We'll be back with more Working Lunch after this.
Cincinnati, Ohio. We welcome you from Cincinnati, Ohio. Nick Hamlin, the fan favorite, to put it away. Touchdown, Cincinnati. Oh, what a catch. Cincinnati can't score. What a possession. And look who scores, and the Reds win.
Cincinnati sports fans are the best. Loyal, passionate, second to none. This city lives and breathes sports, and now it finally has a morning show to match. I'm James Rapine, and this is First Word, the only morning sports show in Cincinnati and the place where every day starts. We break down the biggest moments and set the agenda for the city. Marissa Contepelli and Jacob Tissett join me to bring the insight and energy you need to start your day. The conversation starts with First Word. First Word, weekdays 7 to 11, part of the Crown Network.
This is the Rebound Rundown. I'm your host, Paul Fritchner. Your home for college basketball in the Cincinnati area and across the country every Monday through Friday during the season. Previews, recaps, breakdowns, interviews, and more. You can find it all right here. Your one-stop shop for a quick dose of college hoops on your morning commute. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, my name is Natalie Jones, a Cincinnati native, and I have been in media for about 10 years now. Formerly on the radio here in Cincinnati, I grew my love and obsession with finding all things fun in Cincinnati and have now made it my life. I'm originally from the west side here, and then I've pretty much been a downtown girl ever since college. But I did leave for 7 years, and during that time, I really grew and harnessed and cut my teeth doing stand-up comedy in Los Angeles, learning how to ski in Colorado, and now I'm back here in Cincinnati, driven by curiosity and grounded by family.
I'm Paul Fritchner. I'm a 2019 graduate of Xavier University, and I've been covering college basketball for 10 years here in the Cincinnati area. I'm the host of the Rebound Rundown, a daily college basketball podcast during the season and a weekly show in the off-season covering everything you need to know about your favorite team. And if you're not a fan of a team here in Cincinnati, I have you covered from the national perspective as well. Follow it on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts.
Want to just thank Dan Yakavone and Sari Leitonen for coming on the show with MA Design. We had a mutual friend in Seth Oakley, and grateful to have gotten to meet them to talk about all their interesting work in the city of Cincinnati. Again, sort of shaping what this city looks like. I think it's really fascinating stuff. Designwithma.com is the website for MA Design, as you might imagine. They're right down here in Over the Rhine. Hey, that's our show for today. My email address, by the way, jack@cincycrown.com. We're always looking for different businesses or organizations to keep us in the loop about different projects and things that they're working on. Would love to hear from you if that's something you want to reach out to us about. We'll be back again tomorrow morning on The Crown with First Word. James Rapine, Marissa Contepelli, and Jacob Tissett. Got to enunciate those just right. Going to be on the show talking about all sorts of different sports headlines, topics, and takes for you from 7 to 11. Then we're back again at noon. We've got new Nat Tries That and new Nat Jones show coming out this week. Paul Fritchner's keeping things updated with the Rebound Rundown. That'll be even more as we get closer to college basketball season. There's all the different ways you can watch us, stream us live or on demand. CincyCrown.com is the website. We're on YouTube, we're on Mixlr, we're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeart Podcasts. Any place that you get your podcasts is where you can find us. Thanks very much for watching. This is The Working Lunch. I'm Jack Crumley. We'll be back tomorrow. Thanks for watching.